The message came on a Tuesday during the worst part of shift. She was elbow-deep in a broken water recycler when her communicator buzzed with the official seal of the Human Colonial Administration. Her father was dead. Heart failure, they said, quick and painless. They also said he had left her something in his will. Had not spoken to her father in 15 years. She barely remembered his face anymore, just the shape of his back as he walked away from their family home on Mars Colony 7. He had been an engineer, she recalled. A quiet man who spent more time with machines than with people. When her mother died, he had simply left, signed over custody to her grandmother and vanished into the deep black of space. Now he was dead, and apparently he wanted to give her something. The inheritance turned out to be a space station. Not a good one, not a valuable one, just an old research outpost on the edge of human-controlled space, so far from anything important that most star maps did not even bother to label it. The Colonial Administration assessor who reviewed the property called it technically functional and of minimal salvage value. He suggested she sell it for scrap metal and use the credits to buy something useful, like a new heating unit for her apartment. Was ready to do exactly that when her daughter Maya found out. Maya was 16 years old and had inherited her mother's stubbornness along with her grandmother's curiosity. She had never met her grandfather, but something about the situation caught her attention. Why would a man who abandoned his family leave behind a worthless space station? Why had he kept it all these years instead of selling it himself? What was out there that mattered enough to hold on to? We should at least look at it, Maya said over dinner one night. It's the only thing he ever gave you. Don't you want to know why? Did not want to know why. She wanted to forget that her father had ever existed and move on with her life. But Maya kept asking, kept pushing, kept pointing out that had leave time saved up and the transport costs were covered by the inheritance. Eventually, gave in. Not because she cared about her father's reasons, she told herself, but because Maya deserved to understand where she came from, even if that understanding was disappointing. They booked passage on a merchant vessel heading toward the outer systems. There were a species of tall, thin beings with skin like polished stone and voices that sounded like wind through pipes. They were known throughout the galaxy as traders and transporters, willing to carry anything anywhere for the right price. They were also known for their low opinion of humans. "You are going to Station 774, the captain asked when showed him their destination coordinates. His translator box rendered his words in flat, mechanical English. That old human wreck, what could possibly be worth visiting there? "Family business," said shortly. The captain made a sound that his translator did not bother to convert, had heard enough laughter to recognize it anyway. "Humans and their attachments to useless things," he said. "Your species hoards junk like insects hoarding dead leaves. No wonder you are still considered newcomers after 200 years. Felt her jaw tighten, but she said nothing. She had heard variations of this insult her entire life. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council 8 generations ago, but they were still treated as the arrivals, the youngest species, the ones who needed guidance and supervision. Every other species seemed to have thousands of years of history and advancement behind them. Humans were the scrappy newcomers who had barely figured out faster-than-light travel before stumbling into a galaxy full of ancient civilizations. Maya, standing beside her mother, looked like she wanted to argue, put a hand on her shoulder and squeezed gently. "Not worth it," the gesture said. "We need this ride." The journey took 3 weeks, spent most of it reviewing the station's official documentation, which was remarkably thin. Station 774 had been built during the early expansion era, roughly 150 years ago. It was classified as a research outpost, though the records did not specify what kind of research. It had been officially decommissioned 80 years ago and transferred to private ownership. Her father had owned it for the last 40 years. 40 years. He had held onto this worthless piece of metal for 4 decades while his daughter grew up without him. Did not know whether to be angry or confused, so she settled for both. Maya spent the journey learning everything she could about the station's location. It sat in a region of space called the Quiet Belt, a stretch of empty systems with no habitable planets and no valuable resources. Nobody went there. Nobody wanted to go there. It was the kind of place where things went to be forgotten. When they finally arrived, understood why the assessor had been so dismissive. Station 774 looked dead. Its hull was and pitted from decades of micrometeorite impacts. Half of its external lights were dark. The docking bay barely responded to their approach signals, and when it finally opened, the mechanism groaned like an old man getting out of bed. "Good luck with your treasure," the captain said as and Maya disembarked with their supplies. "Try not to let the station fall apart around you." The airlock closed behind them, and they were alone. The interior was worse than the exterior. Dust covered every surface, thick enough to leave footprints in. The lighting flickered constantly, casting strange shadows on the walls. Half the doors did not respond to their controls and had to be forced open manually. The air smelled stale and recycled, like it had been breathing the same molecules for decades without refreshment. "This place is a dump," Maya said, but her voice held wonder rather than disappointment. She was already moving down the corridor, running her fingers along the walls, peering into dark rooms. When was the last time anyone was here? Check the station's automated logs. 3 years ago, maintenance visit one person 4 hours. She scrolled further back. Before that, 7 years, same pattern. Someone came every few years, stayed for a few hours, then left. Your father, probably, could not imagine who else would bother. They spent the first day getting basic systems working. Military engineering training proved useful as she coaxed the life support into proper function and restored power to the main living quarters. Maya mapped out the station's layout, marking which areas were accessible and which were sealed. There were a lot of sealed areas. "Look at this," Maya called from a junction point between two corridors. She was standing in front of a heavy blast door, the kind designed to withstand explosive decompression. "This whole section is locked down, military-grade encryption." Came to look. The door's control panel was dark except for a single red indicator light. When she tried to access it with the station's general codes, nothing happened. She tried her colonial administration credentials. Nothing. She even tried her father's name and birth date, feeling foolish as she did. Nothing. "That's weird," she said slowly. "This is supposed to be a civilian research station. Why would it have military security?" They found 3 more sealed sections before nightfall. All of them had the same heavy doors and the same unresponsive panels. The accessible parts of the station were exactly what they expected: old laboratories full of obsolete equipment, living quarters with personal items still in the drawers, a cafeteria with expired meal packets. Normal abandoned station things. But the sealed sections were different. They felt deliberate, hidden. On the second day, Maya decided to explore the cargo bay. It was supposed to be a simple storage area, one of the few accessible parts of the lower level. Let her go alone while she worked on the communication array, trying to send a status update back to civilization. 30 minutes later, Maya's voice crackled over the internal comm system. "Mom, you need to come down here." Found her daughter standing in the middle of the cargo bay, surrounded by old supply crates. Maya was staring at a section of wall that looked identical to every other section of wall. "Watch this," Maya said. She pressed her hand against a specific spot. The wall shimmered, then it disappeared. Behind the holographic camouflage was another blast door, but this one was already opening. Lights were activating in sequence, leading down a corridor that had not appeared on any of its maps. The station hummed around them, systems coming online that had been dormant for decades. "What did you do?" demanded. "I don't know, I just touched the wall and—" A hologram flickered to life in front of them. A man's face, old and tired but unmistakable. Had not seen that face in 15 years, but she recognized it immediately. Her father. If you're seeing this, the hologram said, then you found the hidden door. That means your family. That means you have a right to know. He paused, and something like grief crossed his recorded features. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you while I was alive. I'm sorry for a lot of things, but there are secrets that outlive the people who keep them, and this one matters. The hologram gestured behind itself, toward the hidden corridor. The galaxy has forgotten what we built here. That's good. That was the plan. Humanity needed to be forgotten for a while. We needed to be underestimated. But you, whoever you are, you're here now, and that means it's time to remember. He smiled, sad and proud at the same time. Welcome to Project Prometheus. Welcome to the real history of humanity. The hologram faded, and the hidden door opened fully, revealing a corridor that stretched deeper into the station than should have been possible. Lights activated one by one, illuminating equipment and archives that had waited in silence for 80 years. Looked at her daughter, Maya looked back. Then they stepped forward into the dark, and everything they knew about humanity began to change. The corridor led them down, deeper into the station than the original blueprint showed. Counted the steps without thinking about it, a habit from her military training. 300 steps, 400. The air grew cooler and cleaner as they descended, as if this hidden section had its own life support system running independently from the rest of the station. Maya walked beside her in silence. The girl who always had questions, always had opinions, was quiet for the first time since they had arrived. Understood. Some discoveries were too big for words. The corridor opened into a vast chamber. Stopped at the threshold, her breath catching in her throat. The chamber was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the station's visible levels combined. It stretched out before them like an underground cathedral, filled with equipment and machinery that looked nothing like the obsolete junk upstairs. Here, everything gleamed. Here, everything hummed with dormant power waiting to be awakened. This is impossible, whispered. The station's external dimensions, this shouldn't fit. Most of it doesn't, said a voice. Spun, her hand going to the sidearm she had brought out of habit. But there was no one there. Just another hologram flickering to life from a projector embedded in the floor. Her father again, but this recording was different. He looked younger here, healthier, standing in what appeared to be a control room filled with people in military uniforms. The main archive extends into a pocket dimension, the hologram explained. We developed the technology during the war, humanity's first and only war with the hegemony. He paused. The war that officially never happened. Maya found her voice. What war? We were never at war with the hegemony. We joined the Galactic Council peacefully. Everyone knows that. The hologram could not hear her, of course. It was just a recording. But it answered anyway, as if her father had anticipated the question. What everyone knows, he said, is what we wanted them to know, what we needed them to believe. The recording began to walk, and smaller holograms appeared around the chamber, illustrating his words. 200 years ago, humanity made first contact with the Galactic Council. We were young, naive. We thought finding alien life meant we had joined a community. Instead, we had stumbled into a hierarchy. The small holograms showed ships, human vessels, recognized, primitive by current standards but clearly armed. Facing them were the elegant curved designs of hegemony cruisers, outnumbering the human fleet 100 to 1. The hegemony decided that humanity was a threat, not because we were strong but because we were unpredictable. We grew too fast, we adapted too quickly. We asked too many questions about why things were done the way they were done. The hologram's voice hardened. So they came to exterminate us, quietly, before we could become a problem. Watched the holographic battle unfold, human ships being destroyed, colonies burning. She had never heard of any of this. It was not in any history she had ever studied. We should have lost, her father's recording continued. By every reasonable calculation, humanity should have been erased from existence within 6 months of first contact. We were outnumbered and outmatched in every conventional way. He smiled grimly. So we stopped being conventional. The holograms changed. Now they showed laboratories, factories, research stations. Human engineers working frantically, building things that did not recognize. In 10 years, we developed technology that the hegemony thought was impossible. Weapons they had banned centuries ago, before any current council species was even spacefaring. Shields that adapted to any attack pattern. Drives that could move ships through dimensions the hegemony did not know existed. He gestured around the chamber. And we built it all in secret in places like this, while the galaxy thought we were dying. Maya was walking through the chamber now, examining the dormant machinery. "Mom," she said quietly, "these look like weapon systems." They were weapon systems. Could see that clearly now. Massive constructions, elegant in their deadliness, designed with a purpose she understood instinctively. These were not defensive measures. These were built to end wars. "We achieved a stalemate," the hologram said. "Not victory. That would have required resources we did not have. But we hurt them badly enough, surprised them thoroughly enough, that the hegemony decided we were more trouble than we were worth. They offered peace." The recording showed two figures meeting in a neutral space. A human in a simple uniform and a hegemony representative in elaborate ceremonial dress. They were signing something. "The Treaty of Submission," her father said. "That's what the history books call it." Humanity agreed to join the Galactic Council as junior members, accepting guidance and oversight from older species. What the history books don't mention is the secret clause. We agreed to destroy all evidence of what we had built. We agreed to pretend we had always been weak, always been harmless, always been the galaxy's youngest children who needed protection and guidance. "Why?" asked aloud, though she knew the hologram could not answer. But it did. Because winning the war would have meant becoming the thing we fought against. We would have had to keep the weapons, keep the secrets, keep living in fear of the next threat. We would have become the hegemony just with human faces. The recording shook its head. Our leaders made a choice. They chose to be underestimated instead of feared. They buried our weapons, burned our records, and let the galaxy forget what humanity was capable of. "They lied," Maya said flatly. "They protected us," countered, but her voice was uncertain. "They chose a kind of peace," the hologram said, as if addressing both perspectives. "A peace built on a foundation of forgetting, and for 200 years it worked. Humanity grew. We spread across the stars. We became part of galactic civilization. We were mocked and patronized, yes, but we were safe." The recording walked toward the center of the chamber, where a pedestal rose from the floor. On the pedestal sat a small device, unremarkable in appearance. This station was one of 12 sites where the real history was preserved. The others were destroyed over the years, accidents and disasters that were not always accidents. As far as I know, this is the last one, the last archive, the last proof that humanity was never as helpless as we pretended to be. He turned to face them directly, and for a moment could almost believe he was really there. "I spent my life guarding this place. I gave up everything else to make sure it survived. I gave up my family." His voice cracked slightly. "I told myself it was necessary. The secret had to be kept. If the hegemony ever learned that evidence still existed, they would come to destroy it. They would have to. The treaty required it." Maya approached the pedestal. "What is this?" she asked, pointing at the device. "That," the hologram said, "is a quantum transmitter keyed to every human colony in existence. One activation and the entire archive broadcasts simultaneously across human space. Every record, every blueprint, every piece of our hidden history sent to billions of people at once. Impossible to suppress. Impossible to destroy." "Felt cold. Dad, what were you planning?" The recording flickered as if struggling with its own words. "Nothing. I was planning nothing. I was planning to keep the secret until I died in hope that whoever inherited this place would make the right choice, but I never knew what the right choice was. He looked directly at where was standing, uncannily accurate for a pre-recorded message. I hoped you would be stronger than me. I hoped you would know. The hologram faded. The chamber was silent except for the hum of dormant machinery. Mom, Maya said slowly, someone's coming. Checked her communicator. Sure enough, there was a signal at the edge of detection range. A ship. No, multiple ships, moving fast and heading directly toward them. The station's power signature, realized. When we activated the hidden section, we must have broadcast something. A beacon, maybe, or just an energy spike unusual enough to attract attention. She accessed the station's external sensors, coaxing the old equipment into giving her a clearer picture. 3 vessels, closing rapidly. Their design was unmistakable, the curved elegance of hegemony military craft. That's impossible, Maya said. We're in the middle of nowhere. How could they respond this fast? They were watching, said grimly. Waiting. They must have had sensors monitoring for exactly this kind of activation. She thought of her father's words about the other archive sites being destroyed in accidents that were not always accidents. They've been hunting for this place for decades. The lead ship was hailing them, opened the channel. A face appeared on the display, not human. The features were elongated with eyes that held the weight of centuries and a mouth that turned down in permanent disapproval. A hegemony commander, judged from the elaborate rank insignia. Old, very old. Human vessel, the commander said. His voice carried the flat tone of someone speaking through a translator, but something underneath it sounded almost like fear. You have activated restricted technology on a quarantined installation. By the authority of the Treaty of Submission, you are ordered to power down all systems and prepare for boarding. Quarantined, asked. This is private property, my property, legally inherited through human colonial administration. The legal status of your species' possessions is irrelevant to matters of galactic security. The commander leaned forward and now could see his age clearly. This was not just an old officer. This was ancient, even by hegemony standards. I know what that station contains, human. I was there when we signed the treaty that was supposed to ensure it never existed. Power down now, or we will disable your systems by force. Maya grabbed his arm. Mom, he said, we will disable, not we will capture, not we will arrest. Understood. The commander was not here to enforce laws. He was here to destroy evidence, to erase another piece of humanity's hidden history before anyone could learn what it contained. She looked at the transmitter on its pedestal. One activation, impossible to suppress. Commander, she said carefully, I need to speak with my daughter. We'll contact you in 5 minutes. She closed the channel before he could respond. We can't fight them, Maya said immediately. We don't even know if the station's weapons work, and even if they do, we don't know how to use them. I know, was thinking fast, her military training taking over. But we don't have to fight them. We just have to stall them long enough to make a choice. What choice? Whether to destroy all of this ourselves before they can, whether to let them do it. Maya's voice was rising. Grandpa spent his whole life protecting this place. He gave up his family for it. We can't just let it disappear. Looked at her daughter, 16 years old and already understanding what was at stake better than most adults would. There's another option, she said quietly. The transmitter. One activation and everyone knows everything. And then what? The hegemony declares war again, destroys humanity for breaking the treaty. Maybe, walked to the pedestal, studying the device. Or maybe they realize that the secret is out and there's no point in fighting over it anymore. Maybe they accept that humanity isn't what they thought we were. She touched the transmitter gently. Maybe our people deserve to know the truth about themselves. The comm system crackled. The commander again, not waiting for their 5 minutes to expire. Human vessel. We are detecting energy buildup in your lower sections. If you are attempting to activate any of the prohibited systems, be aware that we will respond with immediate and overwhelming force. My fleet will arrive within the hour. You cannot escape, and you cannot win." Looked at Maya. Maya looked back. "What do we do?" Maya asked. Thought about her father. A man who had spent 40 years guarding a secret, who had sacrificed everything to keep it safe, who had died never knowing if his choice was right. She thought about her own life, spent being told that humans were newcomers, children, lucky survivors who should be grateful for the tolerance of older species. She thought about her daughter, who would spend her life being told the same things unless something changed. "We do what humans do," said finally. "We adapt, we survive, and we stop letting other people tell us who we are." She began activating systems she barely understood, following the instructions her father had left in the archive. The station shuddered around them as dormant machinery woke from its long sleep. Outside, the hegemony commander watched his sensors with growing alarm. The energy signatures from the station were climbing beyond anything his models had predicted. Whatever was in there, whatever humanity had built 2 centuries ago, it was coming back to life. He sent an urgent message to his approaching fleet. "Accelerate, maximum speed. We may already be too late." The station transformed around them. Watched through the observation windows as exterior panels slid away, revealing structures that had been hidden beneath decades of camouflage. Weapon platforms unfolded from the station's hull like wings extending from a sleeping bird. Shield generators activated, surrounding the installation in layers of energy that the hegemony had supposedly made impossible to build. "Your grandfather really was a genius," murmured half to herself. Maya was at a console, scrolling through the archive's contents at a speed that made his head hurt. "Mom, there's so much here. Not just weapons and shields. Medical technology, agricultural systems, faster-than-light communications, dimensional engineering." She stopped, her face pale. "They buried everything. Every advancement humanity made during those 10 years, they destroyed or hid. We've been living with inferior technology for 200 years because we agreed to forget how smart we actually were." Felt the weight of that revelation settle onto her shoulders. All the times humans had been told they needed help, needed guidance, needed the wisdom of older species to navigate the complexities of galactic civilization. All the times they had accepted that judgment because they believed they were genuinely less capable. It had all been a lie they had told themselves. "The fleet is here," Maya said quietly. The display showed them, 12 hegemony warships dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Their weapons were already powered and ready. Their shields were raised. They had come prepared for a fight. Opened a channel. "Hegemony Fleet, this is Station 774. I am Master Sergeant of the Human Colonial Defense Force. I am in command of this installation." The old commander's face appeared again. He looked worse than before, his ancient features drawn tight with something between anger and fear. "You have activated prohibited technology. You have violated the Treaty of Submission. You have committed crimes against galactic security that will result in the destruction of your species if you do not stand down immediately." "I don't think so," said calmly. "You cannot win this fight. You are one station against 12 warships. Even with whatever ancient weapons you have managed to restore, you cannot." "I'm not going to fight you," interrupted. "I'm going to show you something." She selected one of the weapon platforms, the smallest one, and targeted the flagship. Not the ship itself, but a specific system, the main communication array. According to the archive, this weapon could disable precisely targeted systems without causing hull damage or casualties. According to the archive, the hegemony had never developed a defense against it because they had never imagined anyone would invent it in the first place. She fired. A beam of light crossed the distance between the station and the fleet faster than the sensors could track. It touched the flagship's communication array and simply turned it off. No explosion. No damage, just silence where signals used to be. The commander's face flickered and vanished from his display. For a long moment, nothing happened. The fleet hung in space, weapons still pointed at the station but not firing. Could imagine the chaos on those ships, the confusion as they tried to understand what had just happened, how a single shot from an ancient station had bypassed every defense they had. Then the flagship's secondary communication system came online, and the commander was back. He looked different now. The anger was gone, replaced by something had never seen on a hegemony face before. Fear, pure and simple. "What do you want?" he asked. Considered the question. A few hours ago, she had not wanted anything except to sell a worthless station and forget her father had ever existed. Now she held technology that could challenge the most powerful empire in the galaxy. She could demand anything: recognition, reparations, an end to 2 centuries of condescension and disrespect. But that was not why her father had preserved this place. That was not why he had sacrificed his family and his life to keep it hidden. "I want you to leave," said. "Go back to your territory. Tell your superiors that the archive exists and that humans know what's in it. Tell them that we're not going to use it against anyone unless we're forced to. Tell them that the secret is over but the peace doesn't have to be." "That is not possible. The treaty." The treaty was based on forgetting. "We're not forgetting anymore." Gestured, and Maya activated the transmitter. Across human space, in colonies and ships and stations spanning 100 star systems, receivers lit up with incoming data. The archive was broadcasting. Every historical record, every suppressed technology, every piece of hidden truth was flowing out into the galaxy at the speed of light. In minutes, it would reach the nearest human settlements. In hours, it would spread to every world where humans lived. In days, everyone would know. "That transmission cannot be stopped," told the commander. "Even if you destroy this station right now, the information is already out there. Humanity knows what it used to be, what it could be again." She paused. "The question is what happens next. Do we go back to war? Or do we find a new way to live together now that the lies are over?" The commander stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned away from the screen, speaking to someone could not see. When he turned back, his expression had changed again. Not fear this time, but something more complicated. Something that might have been respect. "You are either very brave or very foolish," he said. "Probably both," admitted. "My fleet will withdraw, but this is not over. The Council will respond. The hegemony will respond. What you have done today will change everything." "I know." Thought of her father spending decades alone in this station, guarding secrets he could never share. Change was the point. The hegemony fleet turned away. One by one, the warships engaged their faster-than-light drives and vanished into the darkness between stars. Within minutes, and Maya were alone again. Maya slumped into a chair, exhaustion finally catching up with her. What happens now? Walked to the observation window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, on 100 different worlds, humans were receiving the archive's transmission. They were learning the truth about their own history. They were discovering that they had never been the helpless newcomers the galaxy believed them to be. "Now we wait," she said. "We see how people react. We see if they're angry about being lied to or grateful that they finally know the truth. We see if the Council decides to punish us or accept that things have changed. And if they decide to punish us." Thought about the weapons still dormant throughout the station, the shields still humming with power, the technology that humanity had built in desperation 2 centuries ago, preserved against the day when it might be needed again. "Then we'll be ready," she said quietly, "but I don't think that's what will happen." "Why not?" Turned to face her daughter. "Because the hegemony didn't destroy humanity when they had the chance. They offered us a treaty instead. They let us live, even though they knew what we were capable of. I think some part of them was glad we existed. Glad there was finally another species that could push back, even if they could never admit it." Maya considered this. That's a lot of faith to put in people who just tried to kill us. Maybe, smiled slightly. But humans have always been good at having faith in unlikely things. It's one of our better qualities. They stayed in the station for 3 more days, monitoring the reactions to the broadcast. It was everything had expected and more. Shock, anger, disbelief, arguments erupting across human space about what the revelation meant and what should be done about it. Politicians demanding answers, military leaders calling for mobilization, ordinary people simply trying to understand who they really were. But underneath all the chaos, notice something else. A thread running through the reactions, subtle but unmistakable. Pride. For the first time in generations, humans were learning that they had not survived by luck or mercy. They had survived because they had earned it, because their ancestors had faced extinction and refused to accept it. On the 4th day, a human ship arrived. Official markings, government registry, expected to be arrested or at least detained for questioning. Instead, the ship's captain stepped onto the station, looked around at the revealed technology, and asked a simple question. What do you need? Thought about everything she had seen in the archive, the lost innovations, the buried knowledge, the potential that humanity had surrendered in exchange for peace. Time, she said, and people who want to learn, we have a lot of catching up to do. The captain nodded as if this was exactly what she had expected to hear. You'll have both. The council is in emergency session, but no one seems interested in starting a war over information that's already public. The hegemony is officially protesting, but their fleet has withdrawn to their own territory. She paused. Unofficially, there are rumors that some of the younger hegemony officers are glad this happened. They've been uncomfortable with the old arrangement for a long time. Maya looked up from the archive console, where she had been studying engineering diagrams. So we're not in trouble. The captain smiled. That depends on your definition of trouble. You've just changed the entire political structure of human civilization. You've revealed secrets that powerful people wanted to stay hidden. You've challenged everything humanity believed about itself for 200 years. She shrugged. Some people will hate you for that. Others will call you heroes. Most will probably just be confused for a while. Could live with that. Confusion was better than ignorance. Change was better than comfortable lies. She looked out the window one last time, at the stars that humans had spent centuries exploring while believing they were the galaxy's weakest children. That belief was gone now. Whatever came next, humanity would face it knowing the truth about themselves. They were never weak. They were never helpless. They had simply chosen to appear that way for reasons that had seemed wise at the time. Now they could choose something different. Turned away from the window and began the work of building a new future, one piece of recovered knowledge at a time. Behind her, the archive hummed with the weight of everything humanity had forgotten. It was time to remember.